Welcome to Treadmill Talks with Shannon Maves, a podcast for athletes and fitness enthusiasts to pass the time during mind-numbing cardio while I use my no-bullshit coaching style to educate, inspire, and entertain. I'm your host, Shannon Maves. Now let's walk and talk. Hello and welcome to another episode of Treadmill Talks, the one with Nicole Pierce. Today is going to be a very fun and different episode, as this is the first interview episode that I am doing with my good friend Nicole Pierce. She is a 45-year-old OCB figure pro who has been married to her husband of 21 years and is a dog mom to two crazy rescue pups. She is a software engineer by day and a bodybuilder 24/7. Nicole first got into sports in 2007 as a distance runner and has completed one full marathon and 8 half marathons. She didn't start competing until 2018, and she started her prep just 3 days before her 40th birthday, where she actually started in the bikini division, then later switched to the figure division, earning her OCB pro card, and then soon after injuring her shoulder badly, taking her out of the sport for over a year. So, Nicole, I would love for you to give our listeners a little bit more information about your background as a competitor, how and why you started, and any other details that you want to share with us.
Sure. Well, first, I want to say thank you for having me on. This is a first for me, so thank you.
Of course. Yeah.
As you said, I started my competing journey in 2018. Probably 6 months before that, a friend had told me, you should get on stage. You look great, a little bit of dieting down, a little bit of building, and you'd be good to go. I had zero idea what that even meant. Truly,
Yeah.
getting on stage. Okay, sure, let's do this. The only thing I knew, this is a little bit funny, is that I needed help with hair and makeup. So my very first phone call, legitimately panicked about, okay, I know how to lift and I'm sure I can diet, but I can't do hair or makeup to save my life. So my first phone call was to a friend who's a hair and makeup artist, and she actually introduced me to my coach. She was doing hair and makeup for my coach's team. I was like, yeah, I'll take her name. Let me give her a call. And that's kind of how I got started.
That is so funny. I love that, because hair and makeup, that's like one of those things that people don't think about until right before the show. And that's like the first thing that you thought about. I love that.
I was more concerned that I had that right. I figured the rest would fall into place. And it turns out it was a good decision. Since I did end up with my coach, who I'm still with almost 6 years later.
Yeah. Tony Warden, by the way, I absolutely love and adore her. I used to teach classes at her gym. So if anybody listening, also Tony Warden is out of Tucson. She's a phenomenal competition coach as well. So cool.
Yes, absolutely love her. And so that was the start of my journey. I went and saw Tony, and we talked about, okay, it'll be a 12-week prep to get to the show that you want to do. Okay, let's do this. Tell me what I need to know. I knew nothing about tracking macros, didn't really even understand macros. So everything was brand new to me. I started with my fitness pal and taking hours each week to plan out my food and make sure I knew what I had to do.
That's like the sign of a good competitor, though. It's like you didn't know what to do and you're like, you took the time to figure it out. That right there shows a winning mindset.
I maxed things out in my fitness pal, and then I actually wrote out my meal plans and posted them on the refrigerator, checked off meals as I ate them to make sure I didn't miss anything. I actually have all of those in a folder. It's kind of showing where I started from and where I'm at today.
I love that. That's super cool. Awesome.
I did end up going through that 12-week prep. I did have one trip in there and I completely panicked because I didn't know how I would stay on track. Tony was awesome. She said, let's find you a meal prep place. Let's not stress about it. It's, I think it was 4 days away. I made do with what I could. I had one untracked day while I was gone, which Was awesome. I got to enjoy the trip. I stayed on track, made it work. I was very nervous about how that was going to go. Loved every part of that first prep. That was my bikini competition
Yeah.
where I met you
Yeah.
backstage.
Yeah. I forgot to say that in the
Bikini.
introduction. That's where I met Nicole at her first competition. Yeah.
Yes. And that whole journey was just amazing. I look back and think, wow, I truly had no idea what I was signing on for. And actually, I'm kind of glad, right? I wasn't nervous about show day because I didn't know what to expect. I was focusing week after week. What do I need to do this week? What do I need to do next week? Okay, we're starting posing. Let's focus on this. What do I need to know? Ordering shoes? Great, let's do that. In some ways, I'm glad I didn't have the full picture for that first show. And I wasn't worried about what was going to come that I didn't need to worry about right now.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because so many people get caught up on the show day and it really is about the
Yes.
process. And you didn't even realize that at the time, but you were focusing on the process.
No.
So that's awesome. I love that.
So my first show date was amazing. I did do bikini, as you mentioned, and I was awkward, like really awkward. I am not a sassy girl. Um, Tony was like, you have a little bit of that, just a little robot. I just knew this is the pose. I didn't have the flow, and I felt awkward on stage. It was a great feeling in that I had done it, but I can't say I felt at home.
Yeah.
So my judges' feedback that first show was that I looked amazing, but I was a little too lean and a little too muscular for bikini, which was crazy because I was tiny, but I
Yeah.
had a lot of muscle and I was lean. And so one of the judges said I had probably two options. I could either soften my look with peak week, just not leaning out quite as much. I didn't like that idea. I've worked really hard for this muscle and
Yeah.
to be lean. I didn't love that. Or I could look at the figure division. And I had already thought figure, as I was going through, that figure might be a little bit better of a fit. So I decided to move into the figure division right after bikini.
Yeah. Cool.
Now,
Probably better posing for you too, more
oh my
structured
gosh,
posing.
I will say, without jumping too far ahead, when I stepped on stage that first time as a figure competitor, I actually felt at home. Like
Oh,
it
I
just
love
felt
that.
more
Yeah.
more suited to me.
Yeah.
So, without jumping,
Yeah.
over that
Yeah.
whole prep, I will say I don't necessarily recommend taking a short break if you're going to change divisions unless you are already there.
Yeah.
I
If you're
like
getting
I said,
feedback like you're too muscular for bikini, then you probably don't need as long of a break. So,
right, right. Or you might need, in my case, I had the muscle, not, and the shape, not quite the size I needed.
mm,
I think a little bit longer of a prep probably would have been better just to be a little bit more full with my
mhm.
muscles. I don't regret it. It was a great learning experience. And like I said, I stepped on stage that second time and just knew I had found my home in the
Yeah.
figure division. So, if nothing else, I just learned where I should be.
Yeah.
So, that was a 4 month break. I went July, I took a very short break to bring food back up and then went right back into a prep for a November competition.
Okay. And then that's when you did figure. Was that OCB or NPC? Because I know you've done both also.
Yes. So that was still with NPC.
Okay.
I didn't go to OCB until 2021.
Okay.
So I did two shows in 2018. I did July bikini, and then I did November as my first figure competition. Um, the big changes there were my instructions were to go to the gym and lift as heavy as possible every time I was in there. Because again, I had to put on muscle that was very different from bikini.
Yeah.
Bikini, there's a lot of focus, on glutes and hamstrings, and figure is more upper body, right? I needed
Mhm.
to build the shoulders, widen my back, make sure my waist was nice and small. So it's almost like a 180 from what you're doing with bikini.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And eating all the food.
Yeah, because I was
A
gonna say,
lot.
especially like doing figure, like, and again, I don't want to jump too far ahead if we're gonna cover this later, but like doing figure in the NPC, like those girls are massive. Like even at the regional level, they're
Yes.
huge. And it's not to say that the girls at the OCB level, OCB Federation aren't as well, but it's a different look. And getting up there on girls
100%.
who are potentially on gear, like and you being a natural athlete, you know, you're an OCB figure pro, you're obviously a drug tested natural athlete. Like
Yes.
that's you got to eat, you got to get big.
You do, which I will say that first prep, because I only had that, 1 month um, break, if you will.
Mhm.
I had no idea the amount of food I would be pushing until after that first figure competition. I will say that was 6 years ago, and a lot has changed in the regional shows
Definitely.
as far as how big the women are getting.
Hmm.
Even, I mean, 6 years ago, those women were big,
Yeah.
but not like they are today.
I agree. I think
Um,
honestly nowadays I feel like if we look at like 10 years ago, the girls that are competing in bikini now look like the girls in figure used to look. It's insane.
yes, I agree 100%. I've actually, um, kind of going out of order, but I've kind of toyed with maybe I should try bikini again in the NPC division.
Yeah.
I am I am tiny for
Yeah.
figure and NPC. I
How
have the
tall
shape.
are you? And if you don't mind sharing your weight.
Oh, not at all.
Okay,
I'm
yeah, just
five
so
feet
everyone
tall.
5 feet.
Yep, I'm five feet tall, and today I'm 110 pounds, and this
Okay.
is 6 months into an improvement season.
Okay. What was your
So
last stage
this
weight?
last stage weight was 102 pounds.
Okay. Got it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're tiny. That's definitely pretty small.
Yeah. Which can work to my advantage, right? So when I do put on muscle, there's just a much smaller package to put it on.
Yeah.
So it does, I don't have to fill out this, really tall body, but
Yeah.
I'm definitely small on stage.
Yeah.
So I have toyed with, well, maybe I should look at bikini again,
Now that it is
see if
so
I
much
can
more
nail
muscular. Yeah.
posing.
How do you feel about that posing though?
Well, I feel like it would be hard to judge based on my first show because it
Yeah.
was my first show. I had never done any of it. I didn't understand the lines, the moves, how my body looks, how best to present my body. I think I have a much better understanding of how
Mm.
I move, what
Your
will
angles
display
and yeah.
exactly what will display my physique to its best. I think I could learn to be sassy, at least, excuse me, at least enough to get the posing down.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, and it is so nice now that OCB has changed their rules that you can be an OCB pro and still compete in other
Yes,
federations now, because that didn't
100%.
used to be the case. So I think that's awesome because then that way, if you want to compete and figure in NPC, you
Right.
can, or bikini or whatever you want to do. So that's really nice that those doors have opened for you now as well.
Yes,
But yeah,
absolutely.
well, yeah,
That rule actually changed after I became an OCB pro.
yeah.
So when I made that decision to move to OCB to just see, all right, what is it like to actually stand on stage with all natural athletes and not wonder? I knew that if I moved forward, I might just, either have to stay in OCB and other natural federations, which is totally fine, or make the decision to leave the natural federations at some point if I wanted to go back to NPC. So it was very
Yeah.
nice when they made that rule
Yeah,
change.
I agree. I think that was awesome for everybody. Cool. Well, go ahead and continue with where you were at with your
Sure.
journey and everything.
So after that first figure competition, I realized that's where I wanted to be. Got my feedback. It was great feedback, but it was time now to hear well, you have a great shape. Your conditioning is wonderful. You just need to be bigger.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you, I hear that every single show at this point. So
Yeah.
it was time to say, okay, I've been, in prep for like 9 months. This was brand new to me. It was time to take a little bit longer of a break. And I started noticing after that second competition, I I was heading towards some bad relationship, like a bad relationship with food.
Oh, okay.
I had been tracking macros for, like I said, 9 months. Excuse me. I had never done that before. So this was new. And I'm a very goal-oriented person. You tell me, Nicole, here are your macros, get to within, 5 up or down. That's it. I am making sure I do that. So learning to kind of relax that a little bit in my improvement season was hard. I specifically remembered, washing grapes for lunches for the week. And I was washing them and I would eat one and I felt guilty.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it was a grape.
Yeah.
It's a grape. Okay. Nobody is getting
I mean,
bad
even if it was a bite of chocolate, it's still like you're in your off
exactly
season. Yeah.
100%. And that was happening, I'd have a peanut, if I was weighing out nuts for a lunch and I thought, okay, sister, you need to step back. You are either going to figure out how to relax in off season, go and have dates with your husband without tracking those meals, eating a grape, a piece of chocolate, like you said, or we're not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
I literally had a conversation with myself. I felt a little crazy,
Hey,
but
I do it all the time.
so do I, if we're being honest. But that was like a kind of a hard conversation of, you're enjoying this, it's great, it's a lot of fun, but it cannot take over your life.
Yeah, 100%.
Um,
It should add to your life,
and
not take away from it.
exactly. I make it a point now, all these years later, when I'm in off season, if it's date night, I do not track that meal.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing gets tracked. If I want to have, fettuccine Alfredo and a glass of wine and a gelato, I'm having it. And I don't restrict the rest of the day.
Yeah.
That was um that was a little scary to me. I didn't want to go down that path
Yeah.
of being afraid of food.
I'm glad you found that balance again, because I mean, I work with people on that kind of stuff all day, every day, and it is hard and it takes a lot of work, and it is finding that balance and allowing
Yes.
yourself to be fully present and enjoy date night. And again, like you said, not restricting all day leading up to it, because that can create
Right.
its own problems as well. So I'm so proud of you for working through all of that and coming out,
Thank you.
better for it.
And that's not to say I don't still have my moments of struggle.
We all do.
Um, exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't want anyone to think it was a one-time
Yeah.
conversation with myself. This is something that, I think if you're a competitor and you're tracking your food and in prep you have to be very on it, it can sometimes be hard to transition back to quote unquote normal, right?
Yeah.
To live a
100%.
normal life, work towards your goals while still being human.
Yeah.
So that's an ongoing,
Finding that balance is hard, especially as a competitor, when that balance
right?
changes depending on what season you're in. It's
Yes.
like when you're in, they talk about the 80-20 rule, like we want to be on it 80% of the time and then 20%, be a little bit more
Right.
relaxed. But when you're in prep, it's like 95,
100.
5 or 100. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Right.
But then it's like, going back to that 80-20, it feels so wrong because you've been so
Yes.
regimented. But in order to have longevity in the sport, I think it's so important.
I agree. I absolutely agree. So that second, it was really my first off season. I went from November to July again. And you talked about my distance running.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
decided was that, I'm trying to remember when that was. I think it was between those two competitions. I decided to do another half marathon,
Mhm.
which I loved. I can tell you, running is amazing. It's a whole different ball game from competitive bodybuilding or from just lifting weights in general. They don't really go well together.
Yeah.
As far as how you have to eat and train and they're kind of opposites,
What
but
it
I
does
really
to
want
your
my
body and everything too. Yeah. I mean, it's
exactly.
like you said, it's you've never, well, you say what, use your words of what you said about how resistance training versus running has impacted your body composition.
Yes. So I started running long before competitive bodybuilding, and I've always been pretty lean. I can tell you it did help with building my booty. I
Yeah.
never had a booty until I started running, and I didn't expect that. I didn't know any
Right.
better. So that was nice, right? To have a start on the booty. But you're eating very differently. You're
Yeah.
burning a lot of calories running versus weightlifting.
Yeah.
Um, and if you're not fueling yourself correctly, you could be burning your lean muscle mass in the
Exactly. Yeah.
process.
'Cause
So,
I would say that's one of those things that's like that gets so confused all the time is people when you're running to expend calories or yeah, expend calories. And I always tell people when you're lifting to build muscle. Like don't think about it, I was trying to
yes,
lose weight, but rather gain muscle. And it's like a whole different
right.
mindset that you have to have. And I also want to say too, I'm really happy for you that running helped you build your booty. But just so everybody knows, that is a genetic factor. Some people will lose their booty running. So
Yes,
just
100%.
throwing that out there too. That is not the case for everybody.
Well, and I think the difference is I was building the muscle in my
Hmm.
booty, where a lot of us also carry some of our body fat or a majority of our body fat.
Hmm.
So when you're running, if you don't have the muscle underneath, you're maybe just losing some of that body fat and finding out that you just didn't have the muscle under.
Yeah, very true.
I mean, a hard truth too, right?
That I had that
Um,
hard truth my first prep. I went, "Oh, my glutes aren't huge. That was all fat. Got it."
I remember that from your episode where you were talking about that, like, oh,
Oh
okay.
yeah. Oh yeah, that was me.
Um, so I did do a half marathon, and it was great. I beat my husband by a little bit, not because
Nice.
I'm faster, because he had to stop and use the restroom. I was like, a win's a win, dude.
Yeah.
I beat you.
Yeah,
Um,
take it.
exactly. But I went back into the gym, I think 2 days later, and I wasn't doing anything crazy. I was doing step ups and I stepped up wrong and I pulled my groin.
Mm, I remember that.
So, yeah, that was a little bit rough. That took a long time to heal because I didn't give myself a proper amount of time to heal. I think I hit 85% good. And I
Mhm.
said, all right, time to push the legs because I'm stepping on stage. So this would be one of my times that, I fucked up and should have said,
Back off.
maybe I should push this competition. I was
Yeah.
still new. I was excited and I didn't want to delay it. Now I will say I did really well. I became nationally qualified
Mm,
at that show. So, I mean, I don't want to say it
yeah.
worked out because then it sounds like I'm justifying it. It ended up being a really good show for me.
Yeah. But you push your
Um,
body.
I did. And
Yeah.
and my brain was still bothering me after
Mm,
that. So I decided after that show to take a longer break because I was nationally qualified. I was still pretty small. My stage weight was going up over time. So I was putting on muscle, but putting on muscle naturally takes a little bit of time. So I figured, okay, I'm qualified until the end of 2020.
mhm.
Well, we all know what 2020 was.
Yep.
So I did not compete in 2020. I was still just pushing hard to put on as much muscle as possible so that I could get to the national stage and at the very least have the experience,
Yeah.
get the feedback, see what I was up against. I had really no huge expectations. I wanted to do my best, but also knew this is going to be people from all over the country, and those girls
Top
are big.
girls. Yeah.
But you, at some point, have to just say, I need the experience to
Yeah.
know where I stand. Um, but obviously, 2020 gyms were closed. I have 2 gym memberships, and I don't have equipment at home because I pay for 2 gym memberships. And
Mhm.
it seemed like every couple of months, I would get back to where I was and gyms would close. And they'd be closed long enough that you kind of lose some, not muscle, but you lose your momentum.
Yeah.
And I'd get back into the gym, get right back to where I was, and they'd close again. And I thought, okay, I was frustrated. My groin was still a little bit of a problem. I think it was September that I finally said, okay, I'm just not gonna, I'm not gonna be able to do it. I was stressed, thinking, oh my gosh, I haven't been able to build the way I need to. I'm not going to be ready. We don't even know if shows are happening, or
Yeah.
so it was disappointing to lose that national qualification,
Yeah.
to make that decision not to compete. But I did give my groin time to heal because I wasn't pushing at the same level. So
Yeah.
in the end, it did work out, at least physically, but it was definitely a bummer.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because then you lose that national qualification and everything. But so then let's go into 2021 then. Is that when you
Yes.
competed next?
It is. So my qualification ended, or expired,
Yeah.
I guess, at the end of December 2020. So at the beginning of January, I met with Tony and said, "Hey, I think I'd like to try out the OCB. My qualification is done. It's kind of frustrating knowing in the MPC, I don't know who I'm competing against." And this is not throwing shade on anybody who chooses to use enhancements.
Mhm.
Go for it. But I choose not to. And I feel like it would be nice to know, what does it feel like to compete against women who are training just like me? They're not using
On an
enhancements. It was
even
really
playing
just,
field. Yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to get a feel for that. There's the, wow, when I do really well on stage against people who may or may not be using um, PEDs, great. If I do well, I feel really good. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I can hold my own. But I really wanted to know, what is it like if I'm on a level playing field? And so we decided, all right, we're going to do it. June 2021 was the show that we picked. So I had a 6 month prep, the longest prep I had ever had. And it was amazing. I felt so good. Um, had some struggles with getting as lean as I had before.
Mm.
Not sure if that was just getting a little bit older. I don't know if that
So many
was,
factors. Who even knows? Yeah.
I mean, a year of just inconsistencies. I could
Mm-hmm.
tell you 2020, I think for most of us, not just the gym, but diet. Some of that was because of what was
Stress
available
and
in the
yeah.
store. Some of it was just I don't even care anymore. I'm just going to eat what I want to eat because
Yeah.
I can't do anything else I want to do. Probably not the best justification, but we were all there.
Yeah. We were.
Um, but 2021 was pretty amazing. That prep, I felt great. I felt strong. My body, I think for the first time, I was really seeing that figure shape. And so I went into the June show. This was my first OCB show. I competed in two classes. I did the master's class and the open class, and that is where I won both of my pro cards.
Yes.
So,
Congratulations. What did that feel like earning your pro card, especially like your first OCB show and just being like, bam, I did it. Like
it
tell us about that.
was absolutely unreal. I can tell you the weeks leading up to the show, and I had never even been to an OCB show, but I
Mm.
could hear my name being called. I
Oh
mean, that's,
man. Oh, I just got chills.
not to sound like I was so sure, but I
You
was
just
I
knew.
was believing in myself.
Yeah.
I was choking up on the stairmaster, like, just
I love that.
in.
I don't think that's like conceited or cocky or anything. I think that it's like you said, you just believing in yourself. It's just being confident and like manifesting it. And like I think you have to have that mentality
Yep.
to get to that level. Like you have to believe in yourself and be like, no, it's gonna be me. I'm gonna win. And it's not
Yep.
necessarily cocky. It's just that mindset, that champion mindset.
It was, and hearing it for the master's class, I was like, oh my gosh, I just did this. I
Yeah.
was shaking.
Oh,
They call up the winners.
yeah.
And when you're the last one standing on the back line, I mean, before they announce your name.
Yeah.
Gosh, you're gonna make me cry now.
Oh,
It was the best feeling. I can't
yeah,
even tell you how amazing it
I'm
felt. And then when I
sure.
came back out and I had this crown, like
That thing was
literally,
massive.
it was bigger than me, I think, and a sword almost as big as me. I mean, it was
Yeah.
incredible. I have to say the women that I competed with, almost everyone on stage, I am friends with now.
I love that.
Um, Several of them went on in subsequent shows to earn their pro cards.
Oh, cool.
Just an amazing group of people, but that was, yeah, there's no feeling like it.
That's phenomenal. Yeah, meeting people is one of my favorite parts of the sport. Like I said, that's how you and I met, and it's like
Yes,
there's so many great parts to the sport, but the people that you meet is by far one of the absolute
absolutely.
best parts. I love that. So you won your pro card, but then correct me if I'm wrong, it was shortly after that that shit kind of hit the
Yes.
fan for you, right?
Dun dun dun. Yes.
Yeah, fill us in on this because I know this really kind of like you said, shaped you as a person almost.
It did. So that was the middle of June, and it was, I think, early July. I was changing to get in the shower one night and taking off my sports bra, I think, and I felt a, a pain in the top of my shoulder. It was not like a 10, it was just different. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. And so I raised my arm again. I was like, okay, it's still there. And then I went through all the range of motion. All right, what did I do today? What did I work out today? Let's at least start with some of those movements. And I had done the pec deck. So I was doing flies. And when I got my arms out, I could feel the pain. I was like, oh, that's weird. I'm feeling it, pulling my arms in and over my head. I thought, all right, we'll just back off on some exercises. I let my trainer know and figured, all right, we need some rest. Well, that didn't work all on its own.
Yeah.
I think it was August. I ended up at the doctor. I didn't wait too long. We had a vacation. So I thought, all right, we'll see if like some complete rest from the gym helps. It was still bothering me. And again, it was never a 10. This was like a nagging 3 or 4 pain.
Hmm.
But carrying my backpack, my carry-on bag, I was like, okay, this is weird. Sleeping on it. Went in to see the doctor. They sent me for physical therapy. Physical therapy only got me so far. And I finally, what happened? I'm trying to think. I ended up getting COVID. So it was another 3 week.
God. And all of this is right
Yeah.
after you got your pro card.
Oh yeah. Oh, let
Like,
me just tell you
yeah. This
the
timing is just
mental,
awesome.
yeah, the emotions and the mental. I was so frustrated because I had hoped to do a pro debut at the same show
Hmm.
a year later. So I ended up going to see a surgeon. I finally talked to my physical therapist. I was like, look, we have removed exercises, we've modified, we've been doing PT. I had 3 weeks off for COVID, pink eye. Like that's a whole different story.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
a mess. Um, this is not improving. We've kind of reached a plateau. He agreed, went and saw a surgeon. So he kind of told me, you have a couple of options. Doesn't seem like there's a tear or anything. We can try conservative methods, or we can go right to let's get the MRI and get in for surgery. It really depends on what you want to do. I'm not a huge proponent of surgery for the sake of surgery. It's my shoulder. I thought, all right, well, I'm willing to try conservative methods. The stage will always be there. I'm disappointed, but at this point, I already didn't know if I'd be competing. This was December of 21.
Mm.
So it's already been like 6 months, 5 months.
Yeah.
So we did a cortisone shot.
Mm,
And he said, okay, you're going to feel awesome for probably 2 weeks.
temporary.
Don't,
Yeah.
yeah. He said that 2 weeks is going to be amazing. Still be careful because you're going to feel better than you might be. Well, I felt good for a while. And I was like, all right, maybe that's all it was. I started lifting heavy again. It was getting back to where I was. Um, about 5 months after the cortisone shot, I was at the gym. I was doing reverse cable flies with 4 pounds. So, first set, just kind of, I felt the pain and I was like, really? Let's do one more and just make sure I actually felt what I felt. You
You're
know
like,
how
was
we
that a
are, right?
phantom pain?
Right. I was like, am I making that up? So I did one more rep, and no, it was definitely the same pain. And I kid you not, it was like 100 times worse than the first time
Mm,
because I had gone down. Right. I'm injured. I'm annoyed, kind of more
mhm.
pissed than anything, but still plugging away. And then I was on the way back up. I was feeling good. I was able to do pull-ups. I was back to where I had been. And now all of a sudden I just saw it all go. And my mental and emotional just dropped
I'm sure.
further. I was
Yeah.
just,
It's
so
like
this
everything was just
was,
taken away from you again. Yeah.
yeah. So this was the end of May 2022, maybe the beginning of June.
Hmm.
And then to add insult to injury, because the shoulder was bothering me again, I was back to trying to sleep on the other side. I don't know what I did in my sleep. And I know people say, you don't hurt yourself in your sleep. You can.
Yeah.
I
You
consider
get
it.
old enough, you can.
Well, yes. And it was fine when I went to bed, and then it wasn't
Yeah.
fine. I woke up with a pinched nerve on the other side,
Ugh.
and that lasted for 6 weeks.
My
I
God.
and that was like a constant pain. So now I'm back in PT for this shoulder. They're working on this side. And I'm like, are we serious right now? Like, what is happening here? So I didn't wait as long. I went back to the surgeon just a few weeks later. I figured I'll give it a couple of weeks. Let's see if we can straighten something out. Finally went back and I was like, all right, I don't know what's going on. Surgeon said, you can continue to do cortisone shots if you would like. It's not going to hurt anything because of where it's going.
Hmm.
Um, or we can look at surgery. And I was like, dude, I'm 40, what was I, 44 at the time? I'm like, I'm not going to stop being in the gym. I realize I may have to stop competing at this point. I had already started thinking of, well, crap, if this is going to keep happening, I don't know if I can
Yeah.
keep competing, pushing, which that was a challenge too. That
Yeah.
was a struggle. So I opted for surgery. I was like, no, let's just, I have a lot of life left to live. Even if I
Hmm.
never step on stage again, I'm still going to be in the gym. This is stupid. There's no reason for me to keep having to come in here every 4 to 6 months. From what I understand, over time, the cortisone shots will stop being effective.
Hmm.
So then what? Am I just kicking the can down the road? So September of 22, I had surgery.
Hmm.
And I, at that point, had really had to look and say, okay, you may not be competing anymore. The health of my body, this is the only body I have, is way more important than stepping on stage.
Yeah.
I was truly bummed. I wanted to, I mean, the goal, everybody thinks the goal is earn your pro card. And that is certainly a huge goal.
Hmm.
I have one more past that. I would like to compete at the pro level
For
at some
sure.
point.
For sure.
Just I earned it. I want
Yeah.
to do this. But I didn't know if that would be possible. So went and had surgery. Um, I think what was it, 11 days post surgery, I was cleared to go back to the gym.
Oh, nice.
So the surgery that was done, it's called a distal clavicle resection.
Okay.
So essentially, and I made notes because I couldn't remember, but I had chronic distal clavicle osteolysis.
Okay.
with bone resorption. So basically, the end of my collarbone was continually having this osteolysis. It was continually irritated and it never had a chance to heal. So what they did is they went in and they removed 8 millimeters from the end of my collarbone,
Oh, wow.
basically. Yeah.
So just it was basically an overuse injury, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Some people might
Which
know
is,
it as weightlifter shoulder.
I was gonna say, it's very common with weightlifting, overuse injuries. You know,
Yes.
in other sports, you know, you get the concussions, the sudden broken bones. When it comes to weightlifting, it's typically an overuse type of an
Yes.
injury. Yeah.
Yep. 100%. And looking back, having read about it, I think that I was actually having some symptoms
Mm.
8 months before. I was having some issues with doing weighted dips. I was feeling some pain across my
Mm-hmm.
clavicle. We made some adjustments and finally just took them out of the programming and everything was fine. Or so
Yeah.
I thought.
Which, I mean, dips are hard on the shoulders already. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So, um, but because it wasn't a torn ligament, thank goodness it wasn't rotator cuff or anything like that, my surgeon basically said, you can't break what we fixed. We took bone out of your body. We didn't sew anything back together. You know, there's nothing that you can break that we did. You can
Okay.
break other stuff. You can injure
Yeah.
yourself more, but you're not going to undo what we did. So
Okay.
he said, you go back to the gym and back to normal
Nice.
activities. You feel comfortable. Understanding that you did have your bone shaved off.
Yeah.
You do have an incision. I mean, and you haven't been working out the same. So, I mean, there is recovery. So I spent the end of September through the beginning of January, basically rehabbing on my own, doing all the exercises I had learned in PT and slowly just starting back to normal weightlifting.
Mhm.
5 pound dumbbells, 2.5 pounds. I mean, it was very humbling.
Yeah.
And then in January of 23, went back to working out with my trainer. Very slow. We've been very conservative and getting back into weightlifting. Still didn't know if I'd be able to compete. That was not on my radar. It was really just to get back to healthy.
Yeah. For sure. Good. But
Um,
you did end up competing again,
I,
correct?
I did.
Yeah.
So in that time that I was injured and just trying to work on things, thinking I might compete, I was still eating like I was going to compete.
Good.
I put
Yeah.
on more weight than I have ever put on.
Okay.
I went up to 124 pounds, which on a
Which I,
5 foot tall person
yeah, that's a decent
whose
amount.
normal weight, yes, it was uncomfortable. And I just reached a point right around surgery where I told Tony, okay, I need to drop some of this weight. I feel really uncomfortable. Clearly I'm not competing. I need to get back to more of a lifestyle maintenance. So over the course of 6 months at that point, we had already been slowly dropping my weight. And then I got back in the gym, things were going better. We were still just like mini cuts and then maintenance, mini cuts, maintenance. And I think it was around May, I just looked in the mirror and I thought, you know what? I'm going to put on my suit and heels for the heck of it and do some pictures and just see how my posing looks. And I looked and I was like, we're not doing too bad. I
Yeah.
mean, for the shape and everything, I thought, okay, I'm thinking maybe we can find a show. So I
Yeah.
had been, I mean, why not, right? It doesn't
Oh
mean you
yeah.
have to step on stage. So I had been seeing some posts for the Phoenician Classic,
Mhm.
which is an INBF federation, which is another natural federation.
Mhm.
I had been to that show once before, thought it was an amazing show. They have a great production. I thought, you know what? I've wanted to do this show. Um, let's see if maybe I can make that happen. That show was in September. So I reached out to Tony and said, what do you think about shooting for this? And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Like I'm not hanging all my hopes on this where I'm going to be depressed if if I can't do it, but what if we plan for this? And she was like, yeah, let's do it.
Hell yeah.
So I started an official prep in June of 23, and it was phenomenal. Probably my easiest prep ever.
Wow.
And I say that meaning my macros stayed fairly high the entire prep. My cardio was almost nothing. I know there's going to be people here who are going to
Yeah.
hate me for
But
saying all of
no,
this.
but you know what though? I think so much of that, like having heard your story, you talked about how you're like during all this injuries, you still were eating like a competitor. You didn't say fuck it and go off the rails. You know what I
Right.
mean? You still were being diligent. You were still training in any way that you could. Even when you couldn't train your shoulder, you were still training other things. You were
Right.
training your legs a lot and you were still tracking your macros. And it's that kind of diligency is what can help you set you up for success for a really good next prep. So
Right.
I think that's great for you to share that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was that. And if I'm being honest, it was having, at that point, I was at 2 years since my pro card win.
Yeah.
So since my last competition, I had been at maintenance or slightly above for 2 full years. My
Yeah.
body was not fatigued with prep, with dieting, with having to do a ton of cardio and just
It
the
was
stresses that
nourished and
go.
healthy and happy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my body was like, hell yeah, we are doing this prep. And it just went beautifully. And so I did step on stage in September of 23, 1 year and 1 week after my surgery. And I just
Congrats.
felt amazing. Thank you.
Felt like a
It was,
competitor again. Yeah.
I did. And I was nervous. I didn't want to do my pro debut for two reasons. I hadn't competed in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I did lose muscle mass.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I still had some rebuilding to do. I thought, let's just step on stage and get the jitters out, right? Just see, do I still feel good? Do I still want to do this? It's been two
Yeah.
years. Make
Things
sure
can
that this is
change.
what
Yeah.
exactly. So I competed in Masters and Open. And I will tell you, this is the smallest show I have ever been to. I was the only figure competitor, so I
Oh,
did win. I
okay.
did win both of my
by
classes.
by default. I mean, you still looked
Well,
amazing, but
thank you. So it was an amazing show. The promoters are awesome. Anybody looking for a natural show, I would highly recommend
okay.
this show if somebody is looking. And I would totally do it again.
Cool.
And it felt great to be back on stage, but I did feel something missing. I didn't get the competition
Yeah.
that I wanted.
Yeah.
So I did a second show.
Yeah.
I went from the smallest show I've ever done to the biggest show
The
I've
biggest
ever
show I
done.
think in the state of Arizona, correct? Like ever, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. One of the biggest NPC amateur shows, I
Yeah.
think, in the country is what they
In
said.
the country. Yeah,
So,
that's what it was. It was in the country.
yes. So 3 weeks later, I went and did that show. And I did have competition.
Yes.
Again, this was NPC, so it's not a drug tested federation. There's a
Yeah.
little bit of everything.
This was for everyone
And
listening. This was the Whitney Jones Classic in 2023. I was there coaching one of my
yes,
competitors, and I got to watch Nicole. And that show was massive. It was all
it was
day.
huge.
Those competitors, I felt
Oh,
for them. It was all day. But anyways, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead and
no,
continue.
totally. Yes, it was a huge show. It was kind of funny to go from the smallest show ever to
Mhm.
the biggest show ever. And I did place in two out of my uh, three classes.
Mhm.
So I did still do fairly well
Yeah.
as a natural competitor. I will tell you, I felt really good, my shape, everything. And then I look at the pictures of me with these girls on stage and I'm like, oh my gosh, you are
Yeah.
so small.
The shape and symmetry and everything was there, but yeah, you're just I mean, just being so
Yeah,
petite, 5 foot. It's
yeah,
you're
exactly.
littler, but yeah, that was super cool. So you did that show, and that was your last one, and you've been
Yes,
reversing since then, correct?
yes.
And
Yep, I
so
went right into reverse.
so
Yep.
now, do you have plans to do your pro debut this year? Or what are your
Not,
plans moving forward?
not this year.
Okay.
So I felt pretty good last year. I knew I wasn't ready for a pro debut. I still have some building to do. I've been building. I've put on some size, not,
Yeah, I can
a
tell.
ton of muscle. Thank you.
Yeah.
So probably next year. We have some
Okay.
travel plans this year,
Oh, good.
and so I'm gonna enjoy being back in the gym, pushing while balancing life a little bit, not
Good.
the stress and aggravation of an injury and all of that. So
Applying everything that you've learned from everything you've been through,
yes,
that like, yes, off seasons are good. And yes, having that balance during improvement season is beneficial for
100%.
the mindset and longevity. So, okay, that's good. So no plans to compete this year, kind of, and enjoy
No
life. And then next
plans.
year, no plans. I like how you say that with
No,
hesitancy.
I always say there's no plan. So I can almost certainly say I won't be doing a pro debut this year.
Okay.
That's not to say I may not decide on something later in the year.
Okay.
I have no plans, but
We'll
if I get
see.
the itch and want to do something else, who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah, cool. Well, good. Well, Nicole, we've covered a lot for your journey and everything. And we're already, I knew this episode was going to go longer than my typical episodes. I already knew that, but I do want to give you the chance before we wrap things up. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you want to talk about? Any advice you want to give or anything at all?
I do want to say you mentioned at the beginning that I did start my prep before my 40th birthday,
Yeah.
just days before. I just want to tell anybody who is thinking that age is something stopping you from doing what you want to do, it's not. It is 100% not. If you want to, whether you want to compete or just find a new path for your health journey, for the gym, for wellness, eating, it is never too late. You can do all of it if you want to.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah. You are
yeah.
evidence of this. I mean, you guys, you need to check out Nicole if you haven't followed her. I mean, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see her arms right now. I've been staring at them this whole time. And if you're listening, go check her out on Instagram and everything, because this girl is phenomenal. And I have seen the growth that she has made in her 40s. It is
Thank you.
absolutely possible. I've helped many of other people. I used to train people in a gym that was specifically for seniors. I've watched people in their 80s and 90s even improve their strength and body composition and stuff. So it is absolutely
100%.
possible. So I love that you shared that, definitely. And so, Nicole, so that people can see these amazing arms and physique of yours and everything, where can people follow you?
Absolutely. The best place to follow my fitness journey is on Instagram, and my Instagram handle is at NickPie10.
So it's NICPIE10,
CIE.
correct? Okay, perfect.
Yep,
So
that's
definitely everyone listening, give her a follow. Nicole has been such an inspiration to me, such a good friend,
thank you.
just an all-around really cool person. And thank you guys all for listening. If you liked this episode, please don't forget to give it a rating or a review so that we can get it bumped up on the podcast platforms. And also don't forget to share it to your social media. Tag me, tag Nicole, so that we can give you some love right back. And again,
Yes.
thank you all for listening, and thank you, Nicole.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you for listening to Treadmill Talks. If this episode taught you something, lit a fire under your ass, or at least helped you forget how long you've been walking in place, please leave a review or take a screenshot to share on your social media. Don't forget to tag me at Shannon Maves so I can give you some love right back. And thanks again for listening to my Treadmill Talk.